Okay, for tonight, first, good evening, everyone. And again, thank you for staying here at this very, very, very cold night. And today we are going to talk about regional economic integrations. I'm going to cover a few of them tonight. And then the remaining ones I'm going to cover on Thursday. So I hope this is going to be really an interesting and important presentation because uh, this is pretty much the whole world, and in this way or another, countries are connected through those regional economic integrations, and I'm definitely going to cover Russia and in which of those Russia do belong. So, what is the regional economic integration? We always should start with definitions, as I said. So for this purpose, regional economic integration is agreements between countries in geographic region to reduce tariff and non-tariff barriers and to actually promote flow of goods, services, and factors of production between each other. I started here with the question, do regional economic integration promote trade? And very often in economics, you have yes on the one side and then no on the other side. So definitely the main purpose of creating those economic integration is to promote trade, but to promote trade between the member countries, not necessarily to promote the trade between that integration bloc and another group of countries that are outside that integration bloc. So what can happen is that, yes, the countries that are members on a particular regional integration are having benefits and are improving trade. However, the other countries that are outside of that integration may be actually left out that benefit. Oh, sorry. Now, there are different levels of economic integration, and that's also very important to understand because tonight and on Thursday, I will be talking about different integration blocks in different regions, and some of them will belong to this first layer, which is a free trade area. Free trade area is the lowest level of economic integration because it includes only abolishing of tariffs and non-tariff barriers for member states for goods and services. So that will be the free trade. Custom union is a little bit more sophisticated because in addition to eliminating all trade barriers, what we all also hear is creation of common external trade policy. So it's not only that we are trading freely between member states, but we are now having common policy versus the countries that are outside this trading group and economic bloc. The higher level of economic integration is so-called common market. And in common market, again, we are eliminating all barriers. We have a common external policy, but in addition, we now have free movements on the factors of production. What are factors of production? So what are factors of production? In order to produce something, what do we need?
Sources such as sometimes it's coal, engine, machines.
People, yes. So those are the basically the factors of production. In order to produce something, you pretty much most of the time need people. You need capital. In this case, you need machines. And then definitely you need some raw materials. So all of this now in this common market, as you can see, we are progressing to the higher and higher level of development of this trading union. Then we are entering economic union. And in economic union, in addition to all of those benefits, all of those eliminating trade, common foreign trade policy versus part of third countries, and also movement of factors of production, we have common currency, harmonized tax rate, and a common monetary and fiscal policy. And then finally, as the high stage of development of regional economic integration, we have a political union, where in this case, on the top of everything else, 1, 2, 3, 4, here we are also having that we have a central political apparatus. So you can have 5 countries members, 20 country members, all of them are now going to have one political Congress, one political parliament, if you want. So that is the highest level of regional economic integration. So again, there are 5 levels, and each of them is then adding one additional liberalization or common policy. And if you want a graphical explanation of all of that, so we are starting with the lowest level, free trade area, customs union, common market, economic union, and political union. Now, why should country think about integrating in all those regional integration blocks? What are the benefits of this integration? Obviously, you wouldn't be moving into something if you don't have some kind of benefit. So what will be the benefit?
It's easier to trade without any external restrictions and barriers, like legislative barriers and so on. There is no taxes, quotas, tariffs.
Absolutely. And then if you add to all of that, instead of having, let's say, if the regional integration bloc has like 20 plus countries, instead of having 20 different currencies, it's actually easier if we only have one currency. So we don't need constantly to convert this currency into that currency. And that's pretty much the reasoning why European Union created also European Monetary Union. But you will see when I talk about European Union and European Monetary Union, not all members of European Union are members of European Monetary Union. And also I would like to emphasize this one. If you are a group, your voice counts more. If you are belonging to the regional integration that has 20 member countries versus you as a single country, you can have a more political voice in negotiation, in international organizations, and that can actually be very, very positive. Now, what do you think about this? That so far I was talking about all those wonderful positive things about economic integration, but are there any particular groups inside regional integration, inside particular countries, that may actually lose something from this integration?
So, for example, if there are countries that are less developed in the group, so they could not compete with the other countries, they lose their market value. So this is basically it.
Very good, very good. What else? Anything else? Okay.
Like in these countries, we have some companies which are domestic companies, and they also lose this protection from the government. And if we have a policy of protectionism, they get some benefits from being in this country, and they get some additional bonuses. But if we have this alliance bloc, these domestic companies lost their influence, and it's becoming for them much harder to even survive in this market.
Thank you. Now, for all of you who are taking this as a class for a grade, I would like to emphasize this part because this is a theoretical explanation when we can regard regional economic integration as a successful. So there are 2 points, trade creation versus trade diversion. Now let's talk first about trade creation. I said previously that when we are creating economic regional integration, that we are abolishing tariffs. So no tariffs now in trade between member countries. That is going to stimulate trade, for sure. Now, if that abolishing barriers will stimulate the trade in this way, that will create a new trade inside the member countries, that trade is going to increase, that will be a positive effect of regional economic integration. What does that mean? Okay, you have a product that was sold at the price of 100 something. There were tariffs. And then again, if the tariff was 20%, what was the selling price of that product on the market? 100 plus 20%. So that was 120. Now, when we abolish this tariff, now that product should be sold at the price of 100. As long that inside the member states of this regional integration, we have a country who is now going to sell this at that price of 100, not 120, that means that we have created a new trade between the member states. However, if with this creation we abolish tariffs inside the regional integration, but we still kept those tariffs versus other partners, what can happen is now we have abolished this one that was from 120 now went to 100, but we didn't abolish from the guys who were maybe selling their products for $90, for 90 something, but then they have to pay 20% of that 90. So now instead of actually buying from them, because they're more efficient at the price of 90 versus the guys of 100, we are switching to those guys inside the member. That means we are diverting trade from the more efficient producer to the less efficient producer who is now benefiting because there are no tariffs. And now when we take into consideration how much of this trade creation versus trade diversion we have created, or this economic regional integration we have created, we can then say that this was a positive impact of the regional integration. Let's start with Europe. In Europe, there are 2 major economic integration. One is really, really big, and the other is not that so big. Obviously, you all heard about European Union. And there are 28 member countries, and the other one is European Free Trade Area. This one used to be larger, but then some members of EFTA used to actually join European Union, so now we only have 4 member countries in EFTA. And this is when we look here, which countries actually join European Union, pretty much most of Europe, but not all of Europe. And as we have seen during those last 2 weeks in this class and that other one, international economics, very often we hear about that argument when we were talking about Bretton Woods institution, for example, International Monetary Fund and World Bank and GATT, General Agreement of Tariffs and Trade, that the purpose of creation of all of those institutions was to prevent any further big wars in the world. Because the reasoning was, if we have countries that are cooperating with each other, that are trading with each other, there is a less likelihood that they will fight each other. So that's pretty much the reasoning why European Union was created also after the Second World War between two countries. In particular, the first stage of creation was between two countries that really fight that war against each other, and that was Germany and France. Later on, we have a single European Act and all those sorts of things, and then single market. And I just want to show you the video how all of those different institutions are really functioning. So European Council, European Commission, European Parliament, the Court of Justice. Very short video that will give you a little bit better understanding how this European Union now functions. On the bottom.
You have heard about the European Union, but what about the European Commission? Or the European Council? Or what about the European Parliament? Yes, the EU is a very complex system. So complex that even the former US Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, reportedly once asked, "Who do I call if I want to call Europe?" As the name suggests, the European Union is a political and economic union of 28 European countries. The genesis of the EU can be traced to the aftermath of the two world wars, which were responsible for millions of deaths and a devastated European economy. In 1958, 6 founding countries, Belgium, Germany, France, Italy, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands, came together to form the European Economic Community. The idea was that with increased economic cooperation, they would be less likely to be drawn into conflict. What started as a purely economic partnership has evolved over the last 60 years into other policy areas too. These include security, climate, and foreign relations. To represent this broader remit, the European Economic Community became the European Union in 1993. So, how does the EU work? Well, one big thing to note is that there is no single leader of the European Union. Instead, its responsibilities are spread across 7 institutions. But we are going to focus on the 3 main ones: the European Commission, the European Parliament, and the Council of the European Union. Let's start with the European Commission. This is the engine room of the EU, the executive body that proposes new laws. Every member state has its own commissioner, but they're supposed to be politically independent, bound by a promise to represent the interests of the EU before their home countries. Each commissioner is in charge of a specific portfolio, similar to a government's cabinet of ministers. This institution is based in the Belgian capital, Brussels. Now, the European Parliament. It is based here in Brussels, but also in the French city of Strasbourg, where its members meet 12 times per year. This is where lawmakers vote on laws. Presently, it has 751 members of the European Parliament, or MEPs, from 28 member states. However, with the UK's departure from the EU, that number is set to come down to 705. Importantly, this is the only European institution that directly represents EU citizens. Every 5 years, citizens elect their representatives to the European Parliament. Finally, let's look at the Council of the European Union. It's made of ministers from the different EU member states. Ministers with similar roles, whether it be overseeing finance, education, or defense, meet regularly to discuss, amend, and adopt laws. The Council of the European Union, together with the European Parliament, are the main decision-making bodies of the EU. But don't confuse the Council of the European Union with the European Council. The leaders of the EU also meet in this building for quarterly summits. Discussions here often happen at the highest level, which is why you will see heads of state like the Chancellor of Germany and President of France meeting up in Brussels. Other important European bodies include the European Court of Justice, the Court of Auditors, and the European Central Bank. Based in Luxembourg, the ECJ ensures European law is interpreted and applied in the same way across the EU, kind of like the US Supreme Court. Also in Luxembourg is the Court of Auditors. It acts like the Union CFO, responsible for looking after the community budget. And then there is the European Central Bank in Frankfurt, which sets monetary policy in the Eurozone. Yes, that's right, the Eurozone, not the EU. This is another important distinction. Currently, only 19 of the 28 EU member states form the Eurozone, while the remaining 9 are still using their own national currencies. The EU is a complex political arrangement. Critics say that it will not survive due to the many differences of opinion between and within each country. And with tens of thousands of people across dozens of nationalities working for the EU, its institutions have also been criticized for its bureaucracies and complexities, saying it makes it hard to get things done. At the same time, this arrangement has lasted more than 60 years and has so far achieved its main aim, avoiding war between the neighboring countries. Hi guys, thank you so much.
Okay, so this was really very, very short, a very quick review of the most developed and most sophisticated regional economic integration that we have so far in the world, for that matter, that is not a single country. But as you can see, there are a lot of challenges. There was a big challenge when 10 new member countries that were former East European countries actually joined. So that was a huge enlargement of European Union. And then, of course, there are a certain number of countries, 19 of them, that are members of European Monetary Union. And during the existence of European Monetary Union, we have quite a few crises, but the most significant one recently was with Greece and their economy. As you can see on the bottom, I put it here that Turkey has expressed its willingness to join European Union many years ago. However, that hasn't been materialized, despite the fact that some countries that waited less were admitted. And there are some reasons why this is the case. Now, another significant integration block is actually coming in from North America. Initially, it was North American Free Trade Area that was created between Canada, United States, and Mexico. But as you were probably following up some news and developments with the President of the United States that is currently president, we have that he basically protested about the benefits of this NAFTA to United States, and then this whole agreement has been modified and should be ratified, hopefully next year. And then from NAFTA, we went to USMCA, which basically means United States, Mexico, Canada agreement. And since I will be posting this on our site, you'll be able to see those differences here. There are some other regional blocks in the Americas that I put it here. So this is how it looks like. These are all NAFTA member countries. Then we have Mercosur, then we have Andean group, then we have Central America, and then we have a Caribbean countries, sorry, over here. Now, how much do you know about Asian integration blocks in Asia? Have you heard about any of those two? Association of Southeast Asian Nations or Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation? You heard about them? Okay. Anything that you would like to share? Maybe. Okay. Okay. So those are like, this one is actually very old, and it had how to put it, the effects of ASEAN were really initially not that much significant economic effects. And APEC is Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation. As you can see, it actually combines the countries from both sides of Pacific Ocean. So it's not that only Asia is included, but also the countries from Americas are there as well. Now, how many of you heard about this one? China Belt and Road Initiative. That one was announced in 2013. Since it has been announced, it's changed its name, but currently it's actually Belt and Road Initiative. Anybody heard about this one? Okay, now you heard it tonight. This is a very, very, very important new initiative that was initiated by Chinese president in 2013. And as you can see, it has a really very comprehensive agenda, basically creating a vast network of railways, energy pipelines, highways, and streamlined border crossing. So in this way, we can see that it's very much focused on infrastructure. How we connect all those countries that are in Asia from China going west to Europe. And then it also, what it says here, not only that infrastructure is going to be created, but also the promotion of Chinese currency through all of those projects are expected to happen. And finally, as you may know, it's very difficult to transport goods from China through Afghanistan, through Kazakhstan, through Kyrgyzstan, through Uzbekistan to get to Europe. There are really not that much roads. There are not that much sophisticated highways. There are not that much sophisticated and fast railways. So all of this is going to help to break the bottleneck in Asia connectivity. And China is also planning to build 50 special economic zones. Are you familiar with the term economic zone, special economic zone? What is done there? Okay, some are saying yes, some are saying no. So let's start with those who are saying yes.
Okay, as I know, it's a special economic zone where it's possible to trade without barriers which are which exist in the territory of the whole country. Yeah, and in Russia, for example, we have such a special zone in Vladivostok and I guess in Sochi also, and some other in Altai. I guess one of them. I don't remember.
Actually, since you mentioned Sochi and Vladivostok, what those two what those two cities have in common? Where are they located? Exactly, they're actually located near the sea. Most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, those economic zones will be created close to the rivers, close to the sea. Why? Because whoever produces inside this special economic zone, they want basically to export those products around the globe. And so, of course, it's much easier if you have direct access to the ocean, for example, to the sea. So that's that reason, but you're absolutely right. Inside those special economic zones, most of the time they don't pay taxes. Most of the time they have actually other benefits. So that the producing inside those zones is much more profitable, but they have an obligation to actually export those products. Now think about this. I was talking about European Union. How many countries European Union has? You still remember from that slide? 28. Very good. So we have 28 countries that are member of European Union. Think about this. So far, more than 60 countries have either signed or expressed their willingness to be part of this initiative. This is really different, very much different than European Union, because European Union has abolished tariffs, has a common foreign policy, has a common trade policy, has free movement on goods and services and free movements of factors of production. And it has also, as you have seen, a single parliament. It has a single currency, although not all the member countries of European Union are the members of European Monetary Union. This is a little bit more loose integration that really is initiated by China, but the fact that more than 60 countries in the world, or 2/3 of the world's population, is taking active part in this project makes this integration block very, very, very interesting and in a certain way powerful. So far, China has spent, depending on the sources, that's always very difficult, to find the sources that are going to say this is the real number or that is the real number. But according to this particular source, Council for Foreign Relations, China has spent $200 billion on those projects so far. So it was initiated in 2013. Now we are in 2019. So in that time frame, 200 billion. And there are projections that by 2027, it can actually spend everywhere between 1.2 and 1.3 trillion dollars. Quite an impressive amount. Now, these are some reputable people who are knowledgeable, particularly in this area and about China, and these are how they are viewing this integration or this initiative. The first one is saying China now actively seeks to shape international norms and institutions and forcefully asserts its presence on the global stage. The other expert is saying that Beijing's goal is to remake the global geopolitical balance of power. And the last one is a little bit more balanced, and it's saying that this initiative is basically trying to improve Chinese image among its neighbors. So we will probably have time to see which one of those three, or maybe some others, are actually accurately explaining the importance of this initiative. As you can see, these are the member countries of this initiative, and here in the colors, you have the percentage of gross domestic product that is actually related to imports from China. So the lighter color is 0.22%, then 2.4%, 4-6%, and the darkest color means that they're importing more than 8% of their GDP from China. So I guess this map speaks on its own of the importance. As you can see, some of the neighbors of Russia, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, very, very significant, and Russia is, I guess, somewhere between 2 and 4% of GDP it's importing from China. Now, let me just keep this one. Let's go here. Can we see this video?
A brief history of the Silk Road. 6,400 kilometers, searing 50 degrees Celsius heat, bitter cold of 40 below, across steppes, deserts, high mountains, with the constant threat of armed bandits. The Silk Road, a perilous challenge. The bones of pack animals litter the way as if in warning. But the world's oldest and most important trade route was not a single road, it was a vast network of many caravan routes. By the 2nd century BC, the Silk Road connected China to the Roman Empire. But it was only given its name in 1877, by German geographer Ferdinand von Richthofen. Silk was highly sought after by Roman women. But only the Chinese knew how to produce the valuable textile. The 2-year-long trip with up to 1,000 Bactrian camels was worth it. They didn't just carry silk, but also spices, lacquers, furs, and porcelain. In return, Europe sent gold, gemstones, and glass. Inventions, too, such as paper and black gunpowder were spread. And even religions were transmitted. Buddhism arrived in China and Japan across the Silk Road. Cities along the Silk Road flourished. In Samarkand, Bukhara, and Tashkent, there was roaring trade. Most merchants only traveled short distances, then sold their wares to the next buyers. This made the goods more expensive. But diseases were also transmitted along the trade route from Asia. The bubonic plague killed a third of Europe's population in the 14th century. The demise of the Silk Road began, mainly because it was replaced by new maritime routes. Customs duties and bandits could be avoided, and goods reached their destinations more quickly. And today, it's estimated that China's new Silk Road will devour 1 trillion euros. With its roads, railroad tracks, and harbors, it's not a matter of reviving the glories of days gone by, but of shrewd economic calculation.
These are cooling and heating units for industrial buildings. Soon they'll be shipped to the US, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Mexico. The manufacturer Broad Group, a company headquartered in Hunan, China, specializes in energy-efficient air conditioning. In the next few years, the firm, with more than 3,000 employees, hopes to further expand, aided by China's Belt and Road Investment Scheme.
A few years ago, projects in other countries relied on financing by local governments or companies. Things proceeded slowly, but since financing has become available, we're seeing projects develop much faster.
China is pouring billions of euros into projects around the world. At the end of April, 38 world leaders gathered in Beijing to discuss the initiative, widely known as Belt and Road.
Belt and Road opens a new space for growth in the world economy. It creates a new platform for international trade and investment, and provides new ways for global economic governance, and contributes to the well-being of people in many countries.
Sometimes called the New Silk Road, the Belt and Road Initiative is a massive infrastructure investment scheme. New railways are intended to provide better connectivity across the Eurasian continent. Investment in ports will open new maritime trading routes. According to official figures, the total value of projects already signed exceeds $500 billion. The projects are largely carried out by Chinese state-owned firms. They've gained experience with big construction projects during China's own infrastructure push of the past 40 years. But there is criticism of the international initiative. Many Western countries, including Germany, are reluctant to sign bilateral Belt and Road agreements. And one of the critics in the Global South is Malaysia's Premier Mahathir bin Mohamad.
While the increases in the volume of trade can reach the trading partners, the threats to the littoral states have unfortunately increased. Oil spills and dumping of waste at sea pollute the shores of these states.
Concerns for participating partner countries range from the environmental cost to sustainability of debt levels. In some places, China-friendly governments have been voted out of office. Malaysia and other countries have cancelled or renegotiated contracts fearing debt. In view of China's own mega construction boom, critics call many of the Chinese investment projects overambitious.
The biggest lesson for the Chinese government was that you cannot just go ahead and build what you want. You have to consider what local governments and people want, and how the international community reacts. If you ask whether backlashes in some of those countries came as a surprise to the Chinese government, I would say it was not just a surprise, it was a shock.
The architecture of Broad Group's headquarters points to their international ambitions, from Europe to Egypt. So far, Broad has opened offices in 80 countries. And while most Belt and Road projects are carried out by Chinese state-owned companies, private businesses like Broad are seeing improved market access in many countries. One such country is Pakistan. Jason Jian stays in touch with the local staff via video conference. Recently, Islamabad and Beijing agreed to allow bilateral trade in Chinese renminbi, bypassing the dollar as an exchange currency.
We are hoping to reduce currency risks by investing renminbi and receiving renminbi in return. So we are now looking carefully into these agreements.
So far, international trade rules have been shaped by Western countries. Chinese companies like Broad hope that through its massive investments, China will gain a greater say in these rules to make them better serve Chinese businesses.
Belt and Road is a great project. According to our internal analysis, we expect the next 15 to 20 years to continue providing our company with excellent opportunities abroad.
China's ambitions are on the table. It's now up to the rest of the world to react.
Okay, and now, what do you think about all of these things that you heard tonight? What are you going to remember, and what are you going to...
This video is sponsored by...
It is. Or what are you going to look more into it to learn more about? You're so quiet tonight. I'm not used to you being that quiet. You want to start? What did you get from tonight, and what?
The fact that China is starting an enormous trade alliance, and the ambitions are very high.
Also, information about level of regional economic integration is very useful. I didn't know that before. That's too.
Yeah, go ahead.
The one thing I'm interested in is special economic zone. If I said it right, I would like to know so much more about it in Russia, and not only in Russia.
That's a really very good topic, and I know that some of you have to do some kind of thesis that is not called thesis, but research project. And maybe for you who are focusing on economics, that may be a really very good project because you have a number of countries who are pretty much have developed their economy based on those special economic zones. So, and I need one more. So I need one more. Maybe you're going to volunteer. You're not? Okay. One more, just one more. Yes.
I think renminbi as a currency is the big concern for all over the world, and the fact that they are expanding economically, they want to shape the global currency market. I think it's really interesting topic of the research.
You really pick an important one because I will be explaining to probably some of you who are taking economic class, and maybe on Friday as well. If your reserve currency, which dollar is, for example, you have something that is called seigniorage. So write down that, find out what that is, and we're going to start next class with that one. What is seigniorage? and how is the country that has the reserve currency going to benefit from that. I'm going to write down. And when you find out what this is, you may understand certain things in the world a little bit better, and the power of being a reserve currency. Okay, I hope nobody's going to catch cold tonight. So buckle up and stay healthy, and see you on Thursday, everyone. Take care.